Hello again, everyone. My name is James Shotwell. This is Music Biz, and today I'm going to give you another COVID-19 concert update because things are happening and we need to talk about it. Just to bring everyone up to speed, in case you haven't been following along with this series over the last year, there's a global pandemic. You've probably heard about it. And recently, it started to come back more aggressive than ever thanks to the Delta variant and to a lesser degree, at least here in the United States, the Lambda variant. And while I'm not going to get into all the specifics of those two things, you should know that they are the primary cause between a lot of the things that we're going to talk about in this video. So if you haven't done your research, hit pause, go do that, then come back here and we'll keep going. Now, when we made our last video, we said that the big concert promoters in the country were gonna have to do something because the problem with the music business over the past 18 months is that every single person in it has their own idea of what we need to be doing to make things better for everybody else. And so what's ended up happening is that the entire industry is running in different directions and everybody's looking over their shoulder to see what everyone else is doing, see what's okay, what's acceptable, what people hate, what people love. And it's made this really confusing, very messy state of affairs, not just for live music, but for the entire ecosystem as a whole, because as we've discussed time and time again, all these things feed into one another. Now, what I'd like to point out first in this video update, probably the biggest news of the last couple of weeks, is that both AEG and Live Nation, the two largest concert promoters on the planet, have said that starting in October, they will require proof of vaccination or a negative COVID test within 72 hours of the event you are trying to enter. Now, just to be specific here, AEG's rules go into effect on October 1st, and I believe Live Nation goes into effect on October 4th. And this applies not just to people attending the shows, but the people on the stage and the people on the crew as well. Everyone needs to be vaccinated or have those negative COVID tests handy. Now, these steps are really important because after all, the industry is finally getting on the same page. At least the two big concert promoters agree people need to be vaccinated or they need to have proof of negative tests. But there's a problem here, and the problem is these variants. Both the Delta variant and the Lambda variant are getting people sick, including people who are already fully vaccinated. And in some reports, it seems that these new variants are far more infectious than the original strains that we were dealing with in 2020. As somebody on Twitter recently said, this is not last year's COVID, this is something new. In fact, one report found that if you were sitting outside at a table as a fully vaccinated person and somebody walked past your table who had the Delta variant, you could still very easily go home and find out that you have COVID now because you picked up the Delta variant just from a person passing you by outdoors. Now, a year ago, that would have felt relatively safe, but here we are with a new set of circumstances. And as a result of this news, despite these announcements from AEG and Live Nation, many artists are still really scared, and that's what we need to talk about next. So while it's cool that AEG and Live Nation are getting along, artists are an entirely different story. And depending on who you ask, you could get any one of a billion different takes on what's happening right now. Jason Isbell, for example, said that if a venue will not require people to have proof of vaccination or a negative test within 72 hours, he was going to cancel his tour date at that venue. And let me tell you, he wasn't joking. If you Google Jason Isbell right now, you'll find a smattering of stories from venues that refuse to meet his requirements for vaccination or proof of negative tests, so he canceled the date, sometimes at the last minute, just because the venues wouldn't enforce these policies. Meanwhile, there's a story about country icon Travis Tritt this morning who said that forcing people to be vaccinated or forcing them to show you proof of a negative test was a form of discrimination and that we should not be discriminating against people who choose not to get vaccines. Elsewhere in the industry, Nine Inch Nails, Florida Georgia Line, Circa Survive, and many other artists are canceling previously announced fall plans because they don't find that there's any safe way to do it that'll make them feel morally good about the decision to perform live. Yes, they want the money, but they don't want to endanger their fans. In fact, the group Bright Eyes last month canceled all indoor shows on their tour and only played the outdoor dates because they felt that that was the closest thing to safe that they could provide for their audiences. Add to this the fact that all festivals are still moving forward, and there's some good news coming out of these. Now, Lollapalooza had some requirements in place to make sure that people were testing negative for COVID before coming. And according to some reports, there were hundreds of thousands of people on site, at least during the prime hours of Lollapalooza. And to date, there have been no major super spreader events connected to the festival. Sure, some people got sick, but not on a level that some were expecting, and that gave people this big sigh of relief. But as these variants keep creeping up, people are getting very anxious again, and despite that, these festivals are continuing to move forward, but their lineups are often changing. because a number of musicians are the ones who are starting to get sick. All these artists that are getting back out on the road and going city to city, despite their best efforts, find themselves contracting COVID, and that is causing all these weird routing issues with tours. Bruce Dickinson of Iron Maiden, Jonathan Davis of Korn, and many other artists have found themselves getting COVID in the midst of touring, forcing bands to either cancel tour dates altogether, postpone them, or drop off the bill and allow the other artists to play. This is causing a lot of frustration among fans and ticket holders and of course talent buyers who are all trying to figure out how to play shuffle with all the tour dates that they have holds on and booking dates and cancellations and postponements, and oh my gosh, it's just so confusing. Which brings us to the question that is on everybody's mind in the music industry, which is what do we do now? Where do we go from here? At the end of September, we will almost be completely out of festival season. All the big events that are bringing together hundreds of thousands of people outdoors with these stellar lineups of people who also happen to be touring right now will pretty much be wrapped up, and we'll be in the winter touring season, which is when everybody is pretty much indoors all over the country, shoulder to shoulder in tight little cramped spaces that may or may not have good ventilation. And that is where the concerns are arising. Now, having spoken to many concert promoters who cared not to go on the record for this video, I will tell you that despite what you may be hoping, there are many cancellations on the horizon. In fact, one promoter told me that last week they had double the cancellations as they did newly confirmed events. People are pushing their tours from the fall of 2021 to later in 2022, hoping to kind of outrun these variants, or at least that we'll have more information on them and people will feel more safe in the future. Meanwhile, there are some artists who are insisting that they're going to push forward. Some have chosen to upgrade the size of their venue, that way they could have more space between their fans, while others are choosing to only play outdoor venues for as long as possible and then not do any more tour dates for the rest of the year, which means their tours will be wrapping up October, November, depending on what part of the country they happen to be touring in. So yet again, everybody's asking, what do we do next? What are we going to do? Should I put out my album this October knowing that I might not be able to tour on it until next October? Should I try to go out on the road in September knowing that I risk not only my fans getting sick, but myself getting sick, thus forcing me to cancel concerts, give refunds out, hurt my relationships with promoters, have all this drama play out? Or do I just sit home and do nothing and hope that somebody will tell me what to do? And I wish I could come on here and tell you that there was a clear answer. But every single day I wake up, I ask different people what they're thinking in the industry, and I get a different answer. And it brings us back to the same problem that we've had pretty much the entire time during this pandemic, which is that unlike professional sports where there's some like league head of the business that is helping everybody get on the same page, or like a corporation where there is a CEO and a board, the music industry is scattershot. There are a million people with a million opinions. Everybody's trying to do things differently, and when something works, everybody wants to jump on it, but when it starts to look like it might not work, everyone abandons it, and it's just all over the place. What we need more than anything, more than a concrete answer about what October looks like in reference to touring and recording music, is just what we should be doing as an industry. How do we all get on the same page? How do we all agree that this is what we're doing, and if it hurts some of us, that's what we have to do in order to ensure the safety and the longevity of our business? I mean, venue owners don't want to close, but artists don't want to tour because they might get sick. So what are we supposed to do in that situation? Are we supposed to host more local shows with local acts to whoever comes out to them? Are we supposed to do pop-up dates that are slightly higher ticket prices, but people can fly private and hopefully kind of exist in a bubble before the show? What do we do? I'm open for ideas. If you have any, please put them in the comments below because I will be reading them, and I would hope to share some of them in a future video. An idea of like how we can save the industry while the pandemic rages on. Because some people say we'll be dealing with this for at least the next 5 years. So think about that for a second. I'm not saying that the show that's postponed right now will be postponed for the next 5 years, but these ups and downs, these highs and lows, these open everything, close everything, these debates could be going on for some time. And it's going to be messy until we find a way to bring people together and get on the same page. Even if we don't all agree, if we can at least put our differences aside and work towards a better future for everyone, that's the best case scenario right now. And along the way, I will be bringing you every news update that I can find, every important piece of information, every major announcement, every quote, anything, it'll be right here on the Music Biz channel. So if you haven't done so already, please take a moment and click the subscribe button down below. I'm here almost every single week bringing you tons of video content, insight into the industry, guides for success, and of course, news updates about this crazy pandemic. So please click the subscribe button down below. And if you've already done that, well then there's only one thing left to do. No matter where you go in life or what you choose to do with yourself, please take care of yourself because you deserve it.